Miesha Tate didn't really get to make a flyweight debut in UFC 276 took place like it was originally planned. There's been a slight change of plans, and as it turns out, the bout has been shifted to a new date rather than taking place on July 2nd as originally scheduled. In today's video, we'll be telling you all about this rescheduling and why this happened. So let's dive in. First up, it looks like Cupcake will have to wait. Miesha Tate, the 35-year-old UFC and Strikeforce vet who goes by the nickname Cupcake, will just have to wait before making a flyweight debut in UFC. Earlier, she was set to fight Laura Murphy in a bout originally scheduled for 2nd of July during UFC 276, the International Fight Week. The fight was postponed, and unfortunately, her opponent Murphy ended up testing positive for COVID-19. This news came just before International Fight Week, and in her own words, the one-time flyweight title challenger didn't really want to get others sick. After the test results, Murphy, like any responsible citizen, began practicing social distancing and quarantined herself. The announcement regarding Murphy's COVID results was made during UFC Vegas 57 through broadcast. So, as suggested by protocols, the fight was postponed indefinitely until both fighters were healthy enough to fight. Murphy, who was also known by her fighter name, Lucky, took to Twitter to tell her fans about this rather sad turn of events. But it's good to know that her post suggested that she's confident of a full recovery, so we can hope to see her in good shape pretty soon. Murphy holds 4th place in ESPN's global ranking of women's flyweight. As for MMA Fighting's global ranking, she sits in 5th place. There might be a slight difference in how different sites rank her as a fighter, but one thing that we can all agree upon is that she's one of the best fighters, especially when it comes to flyweight competitions. The 38-year-old last fought Valentina Shevchenko at UFC 266 last September, but ended up losing via a 4th-round technical knockout. Her upcoming match with Tate is going to be the first time she participates in a fight since her past defeat. You should also know that before her last bout, Murphy had 5 straight wins. There's no doubt about the fact that Murphy is definitely one of the most skilled women flyweights in the world right now. With such a long break, she's had enough time to prep and go over her fighting strategy, so we're certain that Tate can easily expect Murphy to bring her best performance to the ring. The real question that we should be asking now is whether Cupcake is ready for this fight or not. So, Lucky came about a little bad luck, but what does that mean for Tate? Cupcake was recently on a hiatus of 5 years. It's been only a year since she's been back, and her fighting record has been somewhat okay. She's made 2 appearances since her return when she knocked out Marion Renault at UFC Vegas 31, but she faced defeat at the hands of Vieira at UFC Vegas 43. Miesha Tate has become a pretty big name over the years, especially when it comes to women UFC stars. She's also a former UFC women's bantamweight champion. Although she's been competing for the entirety of her professional career at bantamweight, the 35-year-old fighter made the decision to switch to flyweight. This announcement came after she suffered a defeat from Ketlen Vieira in November last year. Tate was expecting to face Murphy in the octagon during UFC 276 this past week, but after the forced withdrawal of the latter, she has some time to sharpen her skills. So, when will the next fight be taking place? This week, 5 fights were finalized and announcements were made regarding their schedules. These included the announcement of a much-awaited flyweight contest between Tate and Murphy. Yes, a new schedule has been announced for them, and the previously canceled bout is now set to take place in mid-July. This news comes a few weeks after it was revealed that Murphy had contracted COVID-19, so we can only hope that she's recovered completely and is fit to compete. Their bout is one of the most highly anticipated UFC events this year, especially after it was canceled. The hype became even bigger. Now the date and venue have been finalized again. It's set to take place at the UBS Arena in Elmont during UFC Long Island on July 16th. So all UFC fans should mark their calendars for an epic showdown. Both the fighters have a lot on the line. They can't afford to lose. With such high stakes, we can surely expect a bout of our lifetime. Was switching to flyweight after forever competing in bantamweight a wise choice for Tate? Will she be able to perform well for her fans? Has Murphy made a full recovery post-COVID? Is she still a good enough contender for a title that she lost last year in the very last round? All these questions will be answered on July 16th in this year's most important flyweight contest. Aren't you excited? We definitely cannot wait. Here's some other UFC-related news that you might find interesting. First up, we have Dana White, who is unhappy with the fact that Nate Diaz is unhappy over his contract. Did that make any sense? Let's go over it once again just in case. Nate Diaz is one of the promotion's biggest stars, and he's currently having problems with his contract. Both Diaz and the president of UFC, Dana White, have made comments regarding this situation, and both aren't very happy with each other. Diaz wishes that UFC would book him a fight by August, and if they're unable to do so, then he wants them to release him from his contract. These terms sound pretty tough, but fair if we're being honest. He took to Twitter to let the public know his sentiments and also told everyone that he wishes to fight the YouTube star Jake Paul, who is now a professional fighter. But Dana White has a different point of view. He said that Diaz's performance isn't something great and that he wins 1 fight out of 5, so it's hard for them to plan things even though they really like Diaz. The fighter currently stands at 20-13, and in his last match, he suffered a loss to Leon Edwards. With not having fought in over a year, Diaz is getting frustrated, but he was actually offered a fight recently against Khamzat Chimaev, which he turned down as, according to him, Chimaev was a rookie. Well, it seems like both parties are at a stalemate. Next up, let's talk about a troll begging Julian Marquez for forgiveness. What an interesting turn of events, don't you think? Here's the story. So, a fan sent a series of pretty aggressive messages to Julian Marquez after he lost a fight to Gregory Rodriguez at UFC Austin in June. Turns out he had bet some money on Marquez and had lost it when the fighter was knocked out in the first round. Yikes! We admit that must have been terrible for both of them, but still wasn't a good enough excuse to harass Marquez. The UFC fighter posted a screenshot of the rude texts on his Twitter, which resulted in his fans coming to his aid immediately. Soon, the person ended up apologizing to him, saying that he's a UFC fighter who could kill him with just one punch. The troll also stated that his family, along with him, were receiving a lot of death threats. This is a very important lesson to all aggressive fans out there. They should be respectful to all athletes, and of course, sending death threats is definitely not the right way to fix the situation, is it? Lastly, we have Kennedy saying that Britney's behavior isn't very cool. Yes, we're still talking about UFC, and no, this isn't about former American President Kennedy and the forever pop culture icon, Britney Spears. Brittany Griner, the star of Phoenix Mercury's basketball team, has been stuck in Russia since February. The Olympic medalist was found to be possessing drugs, which could lead to her serving up to 10 years in prison. Griner asked the U.S. government to help her out in this situation, but according to the former UFC fighter, this was very ironic. He mentioned the instance when the basketball player knelt during the national anthem to protest police brutality. He thinks that it's odd that first she was protesting this government and now is asking them for help. His words seem to be slightly harsh, but at least he didn't ask the government not to extend any help to her. Phew, well, we don't really know what to say about this. Do you share the same opinion as Kennedy? Let us know in the comments below. That's all for today's video, folks. Who do you think will win the Tate vs. Murphy bout? Do you think Tate made the wise choice shifting to flyweight? Let us know what your opinion is in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Goodbye then, see you in the next video with brand new content.